Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to a spectacular game from the semifinals of the Champion Chess Tour in 2024. We have here Magnus Carlsen against MVL in a crazy English opening in which Magnus will pull off an incredible tactical idea in the middle game stage. In the other semifinals, we have also a great match between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Alireza Firouzja. So it's really, I think, a tense the moment of this event. Put your seatbelts on and enjoy now, really, in a great game between Magnus Carlsen against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. So with white, Magnus opened with the move c4, the English opening. We have now the move g6, the great snake variation, and after move g3, we have now the symmetrical stuff here. c5 also by MBL. Magnus continues with the development. Also, Maxime repeats the moves. We have now knight to c3, we have knight to f6, and now after knight to h3, we have now really interesting sideline by Magnus Carlsen. He's preparing to place his knight on f4. From that square, he has, of course, a great control of the d5 square. So far, Magnus is playing a really different sideline in which at least he's trying now to avoid symmetry, because if he plays maybe knight to f3, then, of course, knight to c6 can happen, and the game becomes pretty symmetrical. In symmetrical games, you cannot really do so much, at least not in the opening stage. So Magnus changes the theory here. Knight to h3, we have knight to c6. Now comes this idea, and now after move d6, we have now b3 here by Magnus Carlsen. You see, as we mentioned, the control of the d5 square. Knight to e4 is not possible because the knight is not here, so now black cannot do this tactic with knight to e4. So that's why so far a good opening theory. But the downside about this line that Magnus Carlsen played is that actually you lost a tempo in the opening, because you played with the same piece twice. You played knight to h3, then knight to f4, which breaks a couple of principles, of course, in chess, which says that you should not play with the same piece twice in the opening, at least if you don't have to do it. So okay, a pretty equal game so far. We have now Carlsen by MVL, Carlsen also by Magnus. Rook to b8, and you see Maxime didn't make any mistakes so far in the opening. He's also, I would say, slightly faster in development, and now he goes for his main progressive plan, a6 b5, with the support of the dark square bishop. He's having here some great attacking chances. On the queen side, Magnus develops his piece, and now comes this idea. Pretty standard stuff here for black. Pretty progressive plan here on this side of the board. We have now d3, bishop to d7, and now after queen to d2, I would say pretty equal game. The engine gives here also good chances now for both sides. b5 by MBL, why not? You have prepared it, now it's time to strike here on the queen side. Knight to d5, Magnus occupies now the center, and now e6. Here MVL doesn't want to tolerate any minor pieces, of course, on his side of the board. This knight is too powerful, so that's why e6, I think, a good move here by black. Knight takes f6, bishop to f6. Magnus also trades off the pieces, and now after queen to f6, we have now the move e3, in which Magnus is now preventing also MVL to jump maybe here on this beautiful square on d4. The rook from f to d8, good move again by MVL, placing now the rook where already the queen is. Probably in the next couple of moves we can expect some pawns to be pushed in the center of the board, maybe d4, d5, who knows, e5, e4. So probably many things will happen now in the center of the board. So if something clears, then the queen could be endangered, of course, by black's rook's activity. We have rook from a to c1, b takes c4, and this good move is, I think, pretty good here by MBL, because this move is not allowing Magnus to take with the b pawn. If b takes c4 happens, then rook to b2 comes in a spectacular way into the game. So that's why Magnus is pretty much forced now to play d takes c4 instead of b takes c4. But this move is allowing here MVL to play a minority attack. A minority attack is this attack where black will play simply on this side of the board and will play with one pawn against Magnus Carlsen's two pawns. And he's trying, of course, to play something like a4. Then after b takes a4, MVL could create many weaknesses, many weak pawns. So the a4 pawn then would be weak, the a2 pawn would be weak, also the c4 pawn would be weak. So that's why I think so far after b takes c4 and d takes c4, black is, I think, taking slightly over here in the game. I think black has now at least better chances to do something in the middle game stage. Of course, with the move d takes c4, Magnus opens up now the d file, and he's now attacking also the d6 pawn. But now MVL plays a brilliant move, knight to e5. This is the way they go. This move is actually not allowing here white to pick up the pawn. If that would be the case, then MVL would have a great attack with bishop to c6. Then after something like queen to c5, we simply take out this bishop on g2. After king to g2, now we simply kick away this knight from the square f4, and now the game becomes pretty unpleasant, I would say, here for white. Look at this, queen to f5, again with the threat of knight to f3. You're trying a big king to g2, but now we attack the queen. Black would have here really the attacking flow. You're trying queen to a5, queen to e4. Look at this, you're trying f3, knight takes f3, rook to f3, g4. That's just one line that I wanted to present you here, in which we see that white is probably getting destroyed here by the beautiful activity of black's pieces. So Magnus really realizes his tactical problems. He doesn't take now the pawn on d6. Magnus went with rook from f to d1, simply putting more pressure against now also the weak pawn in black's position. We have now bishop to c6 by MVL. Bishop takes, knight takes c6, but now in this sequence, white is left now also with a couple of life score problems in front of the king, so that's why Magnus has to be careful what to do. Knight to d3 by Magnus, a5. Now comes this idea that we have discussed in the beginning, a5, a4, trying to split the pawns and create, of course, many pawn weaknesses. h4, Magnus goes for the attack, but I would say here black is already taking over. Here black should have an advantage in the middle game stage. a4, here great move again by MVL, continues simply with this plan. This h4, h5 attack is not so dangerous here to handle. For black, we have now rook to b1, a takes b3, a takes b3, and now in this sequence, that's the beauty about the minority attack. You get at least some kind of a strategic disadvantage now in your opponent's position. Now Magnus has the backward pawn, which becomes now, of course, obviously an attacking chance here for black on the queen side. We have now rook from a rook to a8, simply continuing now the pressure on the a file. b4 in this line is not so good, seems tempting, but after a couple of trades of pieces, here on the square b4, there is still the weak f3 square. There is also now the weakness on c4, so very complicated now game to defend for white. So that's why after rook from rook to a8, Magnus continued with the normal king to g2, h5 by MVL, queen to e2, and now rook from d to b8, simply placing this rook now on this file. This rook is on the only open file on the a file, so here I would say again a slightly better position for black. Knight to f4 here by Magnus, and now rook to d8. Although maybe now in this position MVL had a great chance to continue the pressure with queen to e7. Queen to e7 would be, I think, the best continuation here. Look at this, queen to b7, then maybe putting the more pressure against the king on g2. There is always the possibility of a discovered attack somehow when you place the queen here. I think if MVL would have played the move queen to b7, I'm not sure how Magnus Carlsen would defend this position. But okay, rook to d8, still a good move. Protect simply the d6 weakness. We have now rook to d2. Magnus is trying, of course, to continue the pressure against this pawn, and now king to f8. Again, because of this slightly inaccurate moves by MVL, I would say again a pretty equal position. But now, of course, with some chances for white to attack this pawn, with some attacking chances for black to attack this pawn on b3. Rook from b to d1, of course, continue the pressure. Now, king to e7. Interesting defensive idea here by MVL. Queen to f3, hitting now the knight, and now here MVL protects this knight with the rook. But these moves are what actually happened here is that actually MVL's pieces got a little bit disconnected. This was really unnecessary. I just wanted to point you out again this idea queen to e7 and then queen to b7 would keep simply the position more compact for MVL. Now the rooks are getting disconnected, and Magnus Carlsen tasted some blood here. Here he found a very interesting idea, rook to d5. The engine in the beginning doesn't like, of course, this choice because you're placing the rook really on a dangerous square. Obviously, black cannot take with e takes d5, because after knight to d5 you get the royal fork. You lose not only the rook, you lose also then the queen here. So it's, I think, a game over in this tactical sequence here for black. So that's why MVL after rook to d5, what he should have played is here a calm rook to b6, simply keeping your pressure on the b file. That was your attacking goal in the beginning, and still black has, I think, decent chances in the game. But what the MVL did, he played now rook to d7 and allowed here Magnus Carlsen to continue to push here. Magnus plays now a brilliant queen to e4, and this move is very dangerous because maybe you can, I don't know, play now rook to b6, then it's not working because after rook to h5, g takes h5, and knight to d5, again, black is losing decisive material, the queen is lost. Game over here for black. For queen to e4, that's why MVL tried knight to e5, but now Magnus plays a brilliant, a spectacular rook sacrifice with rook takes c5. This is the way to go. After d takes c5, now Magnus takes, knight takes, rook takes d7. The issue is knight takes d7 is not working because of the same tactical problem. Knight to d5, the fork wins the game here for white. So that's why after rook to d7, MVL was forced now to play king to d7. Although he could have also gone with the move king to f8, and this would be still playable for white. Pardon me, for black. White has maybe here better chances in the game, but still with this progressive rook to b6 stuff, attacking the b3 backward pawn, could, I think, here could be helpful here for black. This was the optimal way here to proceed for MVL. But after rook to d7, MVL took with the king, and now Magnus plays queen to b7. We have now king to e8, but now every line is simply bad, I would say, for black. Even if you try, I don't know, king to d6, then again this rook will be taken. White gets an extra tempo. I would say again, completely winning position here for Magnus. Queen to b7, now king to e8, Magnus takes, of course. Queen to f5, which was now a new mistake in MVL's game, leads now into a really devastating position here for him. A better choice it was simply to step back with the queen trying to defend the king. The king is too exposed, and maybe the game could go on. But still, we have to mention white is much better here. But after queen to f5, the position is collapsing. Magnus plays now the correct move. We have now queen to c8, king to e7, and now queen to c5. Look at this. Both pawns are taken now on the queen side. Magnus centralizes the queen. It's not allowing, of course, dangerous checks here on e4. Knight to g4 here by MVL, and now e4. We have now queen to a5, knight to h3, queen to b4, trying to attack this pawn, but it's simply not working. Magnus found now a brilliant plan, knight to g5. The issue is you cannot take the pawn here on b3 because you're running into a beautiful sequence here. You can maybe pick up this pawn, but now look at this, knight to e6, then you get check. Wherever you go, for instance, you go on a light square, then you get this check, and the game is over. Even if you try king to d7, again with the same pattern, knight to f8, and queen takes c4 is simply winning the game here for white. After knight to g5 that Magnus Carlsen played, queen to e1 by MVL, trying to do something here around the square f2, but it's not working. c5 by Magnus, simply pushing the pawn. e5, but now a great check here by Magnus. King to f8, queen to a2, protects now again the f2 pawn, and is allowing here Magnus Carlsen to push further, and also is maybe in some lines preparing a dangerous tactic b4, and then trying to deliver checkmate here on f7. MVL has maybe again the chance to somehow prolong the game with queen to d1, then b4, then you're trying maybe to protect it. But again, I would say white should be winning here. But instead of this move queen to d1, MVL played another move f6, and now Magnus has now a forced checkmate sequence with queen to a8 check. Here MVL tried king to e7. Magnus gets the queen closer with a new check. Now the knight is coming. King to e8, queen to c8, and now after king to e7, queen to d8 in this particular position. MVL resigned. So what's the issue? If you try, of course, king to e6, then you get a beautiful checkmate with queen to e8. This square is taken by the pawn's activity. Even if you try, I don't know, to escape to f7, still it's not working because of this sequence where you get checkmated on g7. So great game here by Magnus. Really interesting exchange. Pardon me, rook sacrifice in the middle game stage where he spiced up the game in a seemingly worse position. But this is rapid chess where you have to be really accurate. MVL played, I think, in the beginning a really great defense, great strategies he found on the queen side, pushing the pawns, but somehow he got I think too frightened because of this attacking ideas by Magnus Carlsen. Didn't really find the optimal plans, and Magnus Carlsen had a deserved win in the first game of the semifinals between the two of them. And we have to say the Magnus won his match against MVL with a clear result, and in the finals Magnus will play against Jan Nepomniachtchi. Jan won his semifinals against Alireza Feruja, was also quite a spectacular game. So in this super final, in this grand final of the champion chester, we'll see now also the repetition of the World Chess Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting tactics again performed here by Magnus Carlsen. If you want to see some other games that we have covered from this event, here are some games that we have analyzed before. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.